Добрый день, уважаемые коллеги.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. We start our session, and I would like to ask all the speakers to take their seats. So, today, during the fourth day of our forum, our roundtable will be dedicated to a very interesting thing that is getting more and more popular and influential, both in medical community and in the community of users, the theme of smart medical gadgets. When we were preparing for this session, for this discussion, we were trying to identify who is the target audience for this session, a professional community or just a regular patient, a regular citizen, and we were not able to answer this question. Looks like well, the connection of interest in the usage of this kind of devices, both by professional doctors and every specific person, are so similar that actually we cannot answer this question only one way. As well as the very definition of medical gadgets for today is also quite diluted. Well, if we approach from a regulatory point of view, well, today actually we do not have that many devices, that many gadgets of distant control that would have namely official characteristics of devices of medical nature and used as medical device and medical items. On the other hand, especially from the point of view of daily consumer functions, today we cannot imagine our life without looking inside the smartphone and seeing how many steps I have made and how many steps, well, what was the average pulse and so on and so forth. Well, today let us see the discussion and how, from the point of view of professionals, and here we have professional, how medical gadgets would help people, would help patients to manage their own health, how they are spread in the world today, how they can contribute to development of both international and Russian system of healthcare. And now I would like to introduce the participants of the discussion. To begin with, this is Sergei Kim, Director of International Medical Center Bundan; Andrei Almazov, Director of Center of Development of Complex Projects, joint stock company, Russian venture company, Head of National Base of Medical Knowledge; Sergei Sorokin, Director General of Interlogic Company, Head of Team of Developers, Botkin.ai; and Alina Kozyakina, Doctor on Medical Rehabilitation, Motoric Company, pediatrician, and also specialist in management and healthcare economy, which is also important for forecasting for gadget application. Well, we know perfectly well and we are aware of the fact that today gadgets are not the thing inside itself. However, their usage is often connected to one of another mainstream trends in modern science and technology, that is artificial intelligence. Of course, no administrative system is capable to keep in the focus of attention the flows of information that are collected and kept from totally different devices, not only medical ones. Well, let us start with the international experience. Sergei, what role do medical gadgets play today in your company? We know that In Bundan, there is such a system which is called Best Care, which includes not only interpolyclinical and inner hospital system of monitoring, but also a remote system of patients monitoring. Please speak about it in detail. So, dear participants of the assembly, my name is Sergei Kim. I represent Bundan Hospital of Seoul National University. This is one of the leading medical institutions of Korea. And I would like to speak about not gadgets, but how much more, more about information technologies that are used in our hospital, to what extent they help for a doctor to work and they help our patients. First of all, I would like to briefly speak about our hospital. Just a couple of slides. That hospital at Seoul National University is a training base for students of Seoul National Medical College, and this place shows a small medical cluster, not only where we provide a medical service, but also we have scientific research and training. It is famous for being quite efficient, patient-oriented, and it keeps on growing, and the hospital provides front-end medical technologies at a high international level. So the hospital at Seoul National University is one of the first national hospitals which was established at Tsarist times at the end of the 19th century. And with the economical growth of the country, in 2003 we have created our affiliated structure, the Hospital of Seoul National University, the city of Samna, Bundan. Its uniqueness was that it was the first hospital which opened the door and started working without film and paper. From 2003, that was the first digitalized hospital that started its work. Around 5,000 people work in our hospital, counted for 3,020 births. And here we have statistics, but for inpatient department we have polyclinics. These are around 7,000 or visits per day. We have 90-95% of patients in hospital, and we have around 80 or 100 large-scale operations. You see the expensive equipment in the hospital, and I would like to attract your attention how the technologies and information system helps in our having such kind of data. So in brackets you see the research is provided for 1 unit of equipment. You see how efficient participants of all the equipment is, because per day we have around 800 of computer tomography, 350 MRI research, and so on and so forth. This is how it looks. The hospital, the center of prophylactic examination, and so on and so forth, prevention examination. If you come to a website of our hospital, you can see the clinical results of our hospital, all our achievements that we have published. Normally, medical institutions do not like to publish this data because there are some not very positive things, but we have done that, and now we have the second option with all the clinical data regarding the treatment in our hospital. We also have training of foreign specialists, and we actively work with the healthcare department of Moscow. Based on our hospital, we have a training for Moscow hospital doctors and nurses. I'm not going to speak about hospital information system. I think I'd like to speak about smart solutions that we use in our hospital. That is our system, Best Care. We use its second version, 2.0 version, and this system, which makes integration system, which includes not only the whole story of patients, the system of medical prescriptions, but also all the administration in the hospital. That is completely integrated system which completely manages the hospital. The smart decisions that that this system allows to make. The first one is monitoring system. The staff in our hospital can see can overview an operation of all the department and every separate employee of our hospital, including doctors, nurses. So that is very convenient, because you can very efficiently allocate the resources that we have. For instance, if we say statistics, like we planned 800 computer tomography researches, and we see that some of the equipment item is just not used, and we can regulate the flows and helps to efficiently use the resources that we have. Intellectual solutions that we have, that is a mobile electronic medical check-in. This is what is used by our professors when they are abroad or outside hospital. This is dashboard and other things that I would like to describe. This is a mobile electronic registration. A doctor can see the medical history of patient and see not only the records of a doctor or a nurse, but all the shorts and whatever is related to the treatment of the patient. Dashboard. If it used to be written at the blackboard and the handwriting could be unclear, now we have 56 inches monitor for every department, through which you can enter the medical story of the patient. It can be used while we are discussing patients, and also for the sake of explanation to patients what we are going to do with them, results of treatment, and so on and so forth. A smart monitor at bed. This is an option for a patient. When a patient stays in hospital, he has a monitor. It's not only an ability to go to the internet and watch television, but also to see all the information regarding your health. So your recommendations for daily routine, when the doctor or nurse is going to visit you, and so on and so forth. Also, it's possible to order clothes, necessary documents for checkout, see all the results of the research you've gone through, and also information related to your health. Also detailed information about your medicine that you take. Not only their description, but what they look like, what for you take those, what kind of side effects, and so on and so forth. Electronic agreement. So all the agreements to perform these or that procedures, research or surgeries are in digital look. They are explained through the tablet, and there is electronic signature of a patient. You see the economical component. We do not use paper, and all that is in digital way, and thus we can save $380,000 per year. We do not use printers, papers, and everything related. Portal for a patient. This is kind of a gadget. What was created for our patients who have treatment in our hospital. Is that your patient at the picture? Unfortunately, no. This is just, yes, here it is completely a gadget, an application through which a patient can do management of his health and his treatment. And this is an application which tells you that you need to make a vaccination, and all the information and about all your appointments and what you take. If with my data I go to another hospital, I can enter with my ID and show to the doctor of another hospital all my data in the telephone. So I have to bring the medical history. I don't have to bring it on paper. So when a patient comes to hospital, he doesn't have to ask where to go and what to do. All this information is provided in mobile telephone, and he can find his way in the hospital. He can make an appointment, and if there is a special protection in the telephone, he can also pay for this appointment. And also there is a smart poll function, because it's very important for the hospital to be patient-oriented. It's important to have feedback from the patient. So as to these polls, it's one of the important things that are done in the hospital. Well, those who do not have a telephone can use the kiosks that are located at every floor of the hospital, so that to have a look where it is located, they're on schedule. You can pay for your appointment and also get a recipe if you have something appointed. There are 900 multiplications for all kinds of researches and procedures, and in order for a patient not to be explained what he will be done, he will have a link with the telephone and he will say a cartoon where in detail he is explained what is going to be done with him in a very simple language, clear even for school children. So basically, this is a small part of digital applications that we use in our hospital that help in treatment, not only to doctors, but to our patients. Thank you for your attention. Thank you. Thank you, Sergey. It's very interesting. What you were speaking about is a story about general level of informatization or digitalization, which is being developed in your medical institution. So actually, if we speak immediately about medical gadgets, they take only a small part. Maybe it's cardio monitoring for diabetics somewhere. Well, it's even hard to imagine for me whether this data is input manually for the glucose control and maybe some insulin pumps with a distant translation of information. Well, actually, namely, medical gadgets are mentioned only in some small amount. Mainly we're speaking about digitalization today, about the convenience of work for a doctor, about the convenience for a patient to stay in hospital, about colossal savings on paper, for instance, due to modern information technologies, even though a tablet and smartphone are also gadgets which have not medical application, however, optimizing the operation of the institution. You have been working for quite a long time in Bundan clinics. What's your personal feeling? How do you feel this progress related to development of information technologies? Could you please share these observations? Well, hospitals started working with these technologies before 2014, and what we had earlier and what we have now in our hospital, well, lots of things have changed, and it's quite clear that medical gadgets and applications are developing, but there are lots of arguments how useful they are, and I think that our colleagues will share our opinion how useful medical gadgets are. And I know that in our hospital we have not a digitalized solution, but this kind of gadget on diabetic management. We made a research, and we also had an article in American Diabetics magazine that basically there is use from using this kind of gadget on diabetic management. When diabetics download this application into their cell phone, and almost every day they input manually, until now manually, because they have to measure it with glucometer, and this helps for the doctor to correct the treatment of the patient, because there is a scientific article which proved the usage of this gadget. And I believe that in other areas it will also be developed. Thank you. But you know, I'm firmly convinced that with much higher speed than the presence of these or that gadgets, tablets, we have the growth of information flows which are circulating inside your medical institutions, which have to be processed somehow, stored and interpreted. And this is another colossal layer of work which you are doing now. Yes, you are right. A huge database which we have collected from 2003, and that is why we have created Center of Big Data at the territory of our hospital, which also helps to assess and create new technologies based on big data. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I would like to address to Andrei Almazov. Andrei, you represent two organizations at the same time, two important unities. I no longer represent RVK, I left it recently, but you understand what's happening there. Yes, I understand, I imagine. Yes, until now, yes. Okay, and however, you have left quite recently, and you are totally immersed into the information about the projects that are supported by RBK.
And about this number of startups that now go into the venture company for finances and this kind of support. And I'm pretty sure that out of those startups, there is a number of companies developing new medical devices, including those that can be used in our practice. Doesn't matter for the patients or for medical specialists. So I would love you to share your experience and your take on that. So just assess your strategy. Where are we moving in that direction in Russia, and are we moving in the right direction at all? And your second position, or point regarding the base for medical knowledge, which is related to one of my recent statements, where I said that it doesn't matter how many gadgets we're going to have, but instead it's going to be important what we're going to do with this information and the information coming to us, how we are going to interpret that, and is it actually possible to interpret this information and to change our environment in general. So, can you hear me now? So for 3 years I have been working with investments in different technological entrepreneurs, so to speak, and now it looks as follows. We have like a patchy work, so we have a team coming over. What kind of service? Patchy cheesy. Okay, so just try to memorize this term, patchy cheesy. Okay, so there is a team coming over, and they have, for example, some kind of a scientific piece of work that they have developed. They want to quantify it and to measure it. It's not quite clear what they're going to do with that afterwards. And the main problem is to understand, whether we're going to use it as a platform. For example, we have cyber analytic, Kyber Analytica. This is a nice project. We can attach different projects to that and partners. It's not that easy so far, but it is possible. So we are going around the market searching for such partners. And all thus, for example, we have this kind of a plaster that can be attached to the heart and can treat you and help you get rid of some disease. Well, first of all, some of them have no clinical experience, and sometimes doctors, they just laugh at it and they say that we cannot use it because there is no clinical substantiation behind it. On one hand, we have some R&D and have some projects really interesting, but they haven't been really implemented in the future. And due to the size of the market, which is really small, we have a lower inflow of such gadgets. In fact, the determinant power in this domain is commercialization of our wishes to install something nice on them and to have something nice to wear it. And that's why we use different parameters. But except for the pulse, I haven't heard, for example, for this what kind of devices they would love to have to measure other parameters as well. Another function of this parameter is to just to add a little bit of gamification and to see how it's going to work and to compete with others, to counter, for example, some distance that you have overcome, like I, for example, have overcome 14 kilometers. Or, for example, fat tissue. Yes, exactly. They do not always give the same results. But speaking about medicine, so raise your hands if you measure something other than steps and pulse. So could you please just extrapolate a little bit more on that, just to tell us what you measure? We have two major technological barriers. If we overcome them, then we will have it filled not with devices that are now being sold because it's cool, nice, modern, etc. When you have a number of them, for example, fitness bracelet. I got tired of that very quickly, just like with Polar, for example. Now, just one technological barrier. These barriers are not convenient, unfortunately. As for the, for example, the sugar content, it is still done in invasive methods. Previously, you could have a syringe or a special tube to install to measure it, but otherwise, you can also have a chip installed in your body to do that. Not all the people want to do that. Other approaches, they are quite invasive, and the first parameter is the so-called center, when you get very objective data for the detector, and the second parameter, if, for example, you have a scale that you stand on, and if data is sold, then they can also send the time and when the weighing was accomplished. Very often patients, they are not very much oriented and think about their treatment, and they lie, and there are a lot of distortions. Sometimes they fail to note something down on time, or so on and so forth. And these kind of things are already available, which is really great. But the first technological barrier is to make it in a way where this data could be objective, and they would not depend on, for example, how a sensor is installed on the body. And the second thing is the, accumulation of all those parameters in some substantiating database, telling us what we can do about that. Right now, gadgets allow us to diagnose a lot of diseases. I don't know, probably I would say that this is a doctor who can help to do that, them to do that. Except for maybe holders. We don't have any opportunities for this high-profile diagnosis. It's quite a conservative domain. So if we move in a new direction, where we would say that they can improve the quality, or to make it faster, or to make it in a more special way, qualified, etc., then it would be interesting. And then there would be a shift. But so far, we are now just waiting for another wave of hype, and we don't know actually what to do about all those bracelets that we have bought to sell all those not medical but entertaining parts. Andrei, on the other hand, there are gadgets and gadgets. What do we mean when we say gadgets? Could we, for example, transportable, for example, ultrasound device could be referred to as a device? I wouldn't say so. And also, yes, a small cabinet or a small suit. Yes, yes. It could be, something that we could refer to as telemedicine. What about stethoscope? No, neither. I don't think so. Nice. Okay. So you mean to say that your assessment of the market development of transportable medical devices is quite conventional, or conditional. Yes, it's quite conditional because, let's be honest, when you come to a doctor to measure the blood pressure, they use special electric device, and if something is disliked, then they take a special electric device to do that. Do you remember they used to have some mercury-based devices? But do you think that we actually trust them? On the other hand, at the same time, against your conservatism, we have seen a number of publications predicting very soon appearance and coverage. Appearance of different in transplantable devices that could be installed, for example, subcutaneously or in other ways, either within some hospitals or in other establishments. Yes, exactly. It can also be done using your clothes. For example, it can install it in your clothes. So it means that you do not deny the civilization the right to use that kind of devices. Yes, it will be developing, of course. We have another 3-5 years of hype, and after that, the phone will disappear, and then we were gonna have these devices. As for example, Moscow State University, they also have some miniature project, very small scale, and they have special devices that can be installed in a heart to duplicate some of the process, and they have already been exposed to some clinical experiments, and the doctors say that this is exactly what they need, and they really like that. But we will have to drown in this hype, and so we say, okay, let's establish an atmosphere around you of this hype, of those gadgets. But if it disappears, there is nothing left. We need to understand that, and those who approached us, projects were really nice. They were really sustainable, quite stable. But those projects were not about gadgets, but about some new stuff. For example, a new generational inhalers, the so-called project Vivid Breath. I mean, it allows it to live and to be prosperous. I think that they will be developing. But as for those devices, I mean, inbuilt in your clothes, etc., they it will be a little bit too much overwhelmed with hype, because against all those stuff will be also gonna have 50 of the same type, but absolutely useless. Yes, so there is hype, and it will be there. Well, there is some rationale behind that, but when it is gonna grow, and when it happens, we will have different questions of the ethical nature. For example, permanent monitoring over cardio information, I mean, some stimulators, blood pressure, breathing activity, some metabolic processes. So actually, it could help us to prognose the lifespan of the person, and also some risk for the relatives. And also, when you have this information, it's not just about medical task, but also it's about other mechanisms as well that can be used. We know that there have been some very successful startups in the United States and Israel, which based on the data of remote monitoring, they also work with credit rating. Well, thanks God, so far it is being done via so-called premium approaches, where a person cannot be discredited based on the worst indicators, and quite the opposite. If he or she has the best opportunity, then the credit line and time can be even extended and be way bigger. Or, for example, the cost of insurance based on the health risks, and it could cost a little bit more. A lot of mathematical models were based on that are applied in financial universities. It means that we're basically moving in that direction. Like Peskov likes to say, that technologists are a little bit in front of our humanity, and it's not about developing new technologies, but instead we need to be able to live with something that has already been done, and to create some social mechanism. Exactly. And well, as for something that we already developed, I have another question for you in the framework of our national database. So it's not about what we have already developed and created, but it's also about collected. We worked with a big number of different informational flow that do not just need accumulation, but also proper interpretation, and they are some of the major our approaches. What kind of perspective do you see there? We could create a special operator of biomedical data. It shouldn't be regarded as a one single storage, but you mean state cooperation? No, it's not possible to do it with a state. There should be some state-private cooperation, and the state is supposed also to maintain that. We planned to organize a conference on that in spring, and we will have to discuss that. On one hand, we talked about depersonalized data storage, depersonification, depersonalization of the data. On the other hand, we don't have any depersonalized medicine, and we need to somehow arrange that. And secondly, when you take data from different data, you now can trace any person you like based on the digital trace. I think that in the shadow market, they're going to have a lot of different companies that will be able to provide the software. So once you take it, put it in your pocket, just forget about your secrets and your personification. So I think that people right now will have to leave it with that, like in Holland, we somehow leave it instead of trying to protect something that has already been lost, like Pandora chest. You know, you need to be able now to protect yourself against it and discrediting. And in terms of risk assessment for the human being, like you said, it must be a little bit standalone from the desire to rule your own life. So it's not just about doctors who can assess risks and to make some conclusions, but also human beings and others where you're going to have this digital assistant. They must switch from the moment where they're going to work with this information up to the health management, which is the social story. Not so many people right now are interested in managing your own health. Just, I mean, in the volume that we're talking about. That's where the task of our association is not about creating such an operator of biomedical data and to provide our Russian programmers to work with that and in the whole world and to approach the global markets in a consolidated way. But it's not about changing some social norms in your hands and the hands of our customers. We know that these technologies should be used in real practice without any hype, and they should also generate some profit with us. We are not quite there yet, but we can achieve this goal. I would say that we have just some R&D works that have been finalized, but in terms of the depth and promotion in the world, we are not that behind. So they just have more hype there. They have been hyped too much. Sergei Sorokin, startup number one, I would say, yes. Well, and my next question goes to Sergei specifically. In the framework of Interlogic company that you are heading right now, Botkin AI, for example, one of the major projects in public space is the one with the medical pictures recognition, and since we are talking about new technologies and we state that they can enable patients without doctor get some conclusions based on some instrumental studies that are performed by the medical establishment. Here's the question: do you think that patients actually need this information? Is it possible for a patient to process this information, or should we talk more about artificial intelligence who could assist patients in that? It's more a question of professional medical application and concrete interest and curiosity regarding these patients. Thank you very much. Well, that was completely right questions. We are now overwhelmed with this hype, the so-called artificial intelligence, and we see both opportunities and problems as well when it comes to the use of artificial intelligence, at least in the healthcare system. There are a lot of problems. I absolutely agree with that, and not all my colleagues show that, those problems.
It's
So, as for the patient, just to give an opportunity to use the results of those analysis with the help of artificial intelligence, at least, and the sphere that we are involved in. For example, we analyze different images. We are strongly opposed to the providing some access to that. To providing direct access to the result of analysis. Of the images for the patients that can be generated with the help of our platform. And the reason is quite simple. The accuracy
of analysis is quite high, at least of what we are doing. We have spent quite a lot of time. However, there are lots of important factors which do not allow to get stable result for different types of medical education, medical services, and lots of different factors. So we have spent quite a lot of time just not to get precision, sensitivity, specificity overall, but creation of mechanisms when we can get stable results. However, to give the data right after artificial intelligence to direct it directly to the doctor after AI is not very ethical. We work at a very specific area with oncology, and so to give the information directly to the doctor, that with the precision of with this high of probability you have lung cancer, well, how can you get this to the patient? And so initially we show this data, the results of our analysis, to the doctor, so the doctor would verify it, so the doctor would suggest some additional methods of research, so that the diagnosis, the suspicious that patients got, so they should go through the doctor. And that is the answer to your question. And however, as related to the prospects of using the technologies of AI, the results that we get, they show that the prospects are really high. And at this slide you have a very interesting example related to the problem that we come to our projects, so that to show practical value of the product we provide, I believe it's very important, in my opinion. So this AI preface is added almost to any product. Yesterday was an interesting session where they spoke about statistics, that for some methods of calculations they identified that AI preface to any kind of product or company adds like 38% to the market capitalization. I don't know whether it's true or not, but that is an interesting data. So what we have done with the help of our platform, first of all, there is a problem, it's very obvious, related to precision of malignant formations at an examinations of by doctors, analysis by X-ray specialists, the possibilities of malignant formations in lungs. So a couple of years ago there was a research and design was very simple. There was international research of screening of lungs cancer, and every year those who participated in this research went through the examination X-ray of the chest, And as soon as they found lung cancer, and 3 doctors reconsidered research of the same patient 1 year ago. So 1 year before they got diagnosis. For the purpose to answer the question, was it possible 1 year before the diagnosis was stated to see that possibly there is inclination to lung cancer? So overall, like in 70% of cases, we identified that the doctors missed. It could have been found at earlier stages, 1 year before the diagnosis, to find the lung cancer. What is 1 year? Well, actually, this is considerable increase in efficient treatment. And according to the statistics, around 50% of all the patients with lung cancer live less than 1 year. That is mostly related to the fact that it is diagnosed at late stages. And at that, in every country, including Russia, we have not enough X-ray specialists. And it's totally objective. Not because the doctors are bad, but because there are some objective complications related to diagnosis, especially at early stages. And with that, we have scarce of X-ray specialists, which is an average 23%. What you are saying is an area of application of new technologies, which on the one hand are capable of solving a problem purely physical, scarce of specialists, some specialists, but on the other hand, totally and completely change the quality of diagnosis. Yes, exactly like this. And initially, the task was not to decrease problems from the quantity of rentgenologists, X-ray specialists, but if we're speaking about malignant formations, this is the identification percent at early stages. And here is a question. At 70% of cases, well, we see mistakes, non-identification, and in case of correct diagnosis with the help of offered tools, whose diagnosis will it be? Will it be diagnosis of a doctor or made by information system? Well, from the point of view, who will be responsible for the correctness of diagnosis? Yes, and who will be responsible, and also, let us say, who or what will be doing this diagnosis? Well, there is a similar question. In my opinion, the research turned into kind of show, kind of battles between artificial intelligence and doctors. Well, in my opinion, they're not very correct. You cannot juxtapose a doctor and artificial intelligence. This is an assistant to a doctor. And final diagnosis should be done by a doctor, but with the usage of all the applications that are provided by artificial intelligence. But you understand that human fears will never get everywhere. But the understanding of artificial intelligence in medicine is actually a collective intelligence of all the doctors and specialists who have already gone through some mistakes, who have elaborated algorithms and introduced them into the system. This is a product which makes diagnosis. So all the doctors who worked at this system make this diagnosis. And our perception is of the situation when the diagnosis is made by a computer or a program creates more fears, suspicions, and worries than understanding of possibilities that this technological approach provides. You know, it's not just one way. Now we work not only in Russia but in other countries, and also with a less level of healthcare development, where patients much less trust doctors. And there we are told that if you add the function of artificial intelligence, we will trust doctors more, we will trust the clinic that uses that more. So there are different opinions about this, but overall yes, in my mind, in the same way like such a commonplace comparison, regardless of autopilot in the plane, there are still pilots, and regardless of the point that there is artificial intelligence, still have a doctor, and doctors will remain. But do you agree with the fact that this psychological barrier of perception, of hostile perception, can be somehow removed? Yes, of course. Of course, it should be overcome, and overcome both from the patients and from the doctors, because in our experience we can see that it's very important to correctly work with doctors in order to show that we come to clinic not only to not to replace them, but to facilitate their work and to technically decrease the percent of possible mistakes that they can make due to their high load and so on and so forth. Well, I see that you have some more slides. Well, this is a little bit outdated thing. We have made some pilot projects, and the pilot projects were arranged so that to show to doctors and to government of the region, because we work at the level of subjects of the Russian Federation, to show practical experience. So that is related to practical use. We came to region, made integration with large archives of medical images. We took deep personified data, reconsidered those once again, reconsidered the research that doctors considered before in order to find the researches, the images where possibly something was missed. And we really found that in every region, in every pilot project, the patients that we identified for the first time, the cases of malignant formations. And now in one of the regions, like in Yamal, with the results of pilot project, we have already started in a daily mode all the images that go through central archive of medical images, to which all the diagnostic equipment is connected. Now we have around 10 pilot regions, and actually target model that we consider to be right to use artificial intelligence in radiology is kind of a comprehensive platform which can be used in other different scenarios. Immediately working in one clinics, or scenario of routing and research between different clinics where there are different specialists having experience in different areas of radiology. Well, maybe not in all the scenarios we can use artificial intelligence. Possibly it should be used where it's to the point and where it is possible. So this is the comprehensive approach, where it's not obligatory to have in the center like the scenarios, the workflow that already exists in healthcare, so that these technologies would help to more efficiency operate with the information. Thank you very much. And now let's touch upon another important aspect, technology with which Motorica company works. Is very hard to correlate with the word gadget. On the one hand, you make kind of external portable devices. On the other hand, these are devices that have brightly expressed therapeutic character, therapeutic nature. So they help patients to get cured, not to get cured, but to get rid of some diseases, and let us say to get adapted, to adapt to the knowledge typical of some diseases, a reality of the condition the patient is in. Motorica company, first of all, specializes on children with the absence of some limbs or part of that. Well, could you please tell basic concept of your company, how you view further development of technologies which you work at, and also your relation to the problem that we're discussing today? Well, thank you. Thank you. Initially, I wanted to say that, dear colleagues, I think we're all colleagues actually, as we're interested in gadgets in this or that way. We work with this to this or that extent, which makes us colleagues. Gadgets already entered medicine. You can argue with that or not, but it's true. They will keep on coming into the medicine, and it is also a fact. I would like to communicate from a position of a person who is inside this system, who is dealing not only with organizational issues, but a daily cooperation with the patients, their relatives who use these kind of gadgets. And the theme that I believe is especially important in this aspect is how gadget influence psychology of a person. Psychology not only of user, but also environment. But initially, let us understand there is a correct question whether these are gadgets. Why prosthesis is a gadget? I will try to explain this to you. Well, let us start with the fact that prostheses are totally different as to the level of their gadgetability and the level of innovation and there are prostheses which work with the just with the gravity mechanism, bending of a joint, bending the fingers of prosthesis. In my opinion, this is already a gadget because there are no standard solutions. They are all different for individual user, and they are created. They're printed at 3D printer. They are created in complicated computer software. They can be of any color, any shape, any content, and for children there are lots of different parts that can perform the activities which are of special importance. What can it be? If a child likes to paint, we can input a palette for the child, but for a child who cannot hold it, this will be a huge profit. More complicated prostheses, those that work from the signal of muscles from electromyography, and part of those can program the user options of the grab. That means the person can adjust this to himself. I want to be able to grab a cup. This is why I need to have a grab to show some fingers at the concert. So these are different options available, and which are important. These prosthetics can feel the muscle conditions, and they feel average range signal. Today, a person is not feeling well. It's hard to operate muscles, and they'll be more sensitive. And in this prosthesis, it's also available to have a smart watch, PayPass, cell phone, all these things of tracking condition of human health. All this can be installed into the prosthesis, and it is already done, and it works like this. And what's important, as I think, we were speaking about different solutions implemented in some of the technologies, which just start their way, quite successful one, and these gadgets are available in all regions and for free. So a child or an adult, we are not speaking only about children, can get this at the expense of the state. It's important to start it from childhood. This is an interesting thing, how much a young man, a child needs actually these gadgets. And as to these gadgets, I believe that the child is 2 or 3 years and he can use this prosthesis, and it is important for him or her, as this gadget is not for the sake of hype. This is not a gadget for the sake of a gadget, but that is also important for a child, but this is actually a gadget for the sake of health. This is to preserve the posture, not to allow changes in the other hand because of overload, not to allow muscles atrophy of that arm that works without prosthesis. So this is mainly for the health. And that is the idea which makes me feel worried as a doctor. I think it's quite clear. I think you would support me. Maybe you will argue with me, maybe you will offer your own solution. Are we ready, we as community, are we ready for this kind of gadgets? Very often I hear from parents of our children, my patients, that I don't want to have prosthesis gadgets. I want a regular solution which would look as much as the hand of another child as possible. I don't want to have anything unique. I want this to be unnoticed. This is psychology of an adult who
I don't mean to say that something opposite, but we have a lot of users. Well, sooner or later they come to this colorful prosthesis with some functional stuff, etc. But they don't do it just all of a sudden. Because they doesn't mean to say that they're not ready to accept something unusual, but it's also about an ability to do that. But we have artificial intelligence, different sensors, which is really unusual. Of course, we are advanced people. We dispute different things. We talk about things, but it's just the minimum part of our country. But what about others? Are they ready for that? We're trying to work as a community. We work with parents. We try to explain what is important. We also help them. The matter to explain, but it's not scary that we need to behave in a special way at school. We try to treat every situation in individual ways. We are living within one community of all our users and gadget users. We are all together. And now, just appealing to a concrete user, we should say that you are not the only one. We're trying to include our users in big media spaces. So they also filmed in some videos and movies, but I think that is not enough. We could do more than that in order to make gadgets more comfortable, to make them more comfortable assistance for us and health, especially for all those people who want to. That is why my message to you would be as follows. Let's probably discuss how to make our gadgets as convenient as possible and what we're supposed to do to achieve this goal. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Alina, for such an interesting and inspiring speech. And it tells us that gadgets are not just about hype, especially in those cases when we talk about prosthesis and about that unique solution and methods that you decided to choose and that can be offered by the Motorica company. Your company appeared and was founded 4 or 5 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. So could you please say how you started and how your range or assortment developed over the past years? Yes, during the previous session, Ilya Chekh delivered a special speech about the company, and he founded the Motorica company. It was not related to the big medicine. He is not a doctor by profession, but he felt there was a need to do that. There was no high-quality prosthesis in Russia, so he decided to dig deeper into that and find a way to do that. Over the past 5 years, our prostheses have changed a lot. They have grown, based on many criteria. We have new models, we have bionic models working from the muscles impulses, and they are able to make their owners move their fingers. This year around, we went to a big conference in Japan. So there was a convention of all the specialist sphere of prosthetic care, and it's really honor for me, and I'm proud to say that we are there, and even England, Japan and America, they are buying from us. So that is a fresh story. Over the past 5 years, it's true, fresh history, how we created a unique gadget for health. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, colleagues, and now you have an opportunity to address questions to each other. Maybe you have some comments, and if our spectators have questions, you are most welcome to address them to our speakers. It would be nice to know who actually measures what, I mean, except for pulse, for the pulse, and what we or you do that for. Let's start with the audience. Yes, good afternoon, Vice President of the Federation of Tape Box. I'm here in the center, I just couldn't see you. So, while listening to Alina, I wanted to suggest some cooperation, but apart from our activities, we also have 24 champions. Well, everybody is healthy. 40% are vegetarian, and we also work with a special algorithm. We create a special program. We looked at some of the nature laws, and we try to understand what we could assist you in. So we decided to transform everything in the binary code. Binary code. Yes, it's very difficult to, compile the two. The 3-point binary code. I think that we could talk about it on the margins. This is just a working instrument, and it has its own results. That's what I'm talking about. For you, for example, we could, based on your order, we could create that kind of orders because the matrix is the same. So again, the question is all about whether you want or you do not want to cooperate with it. There is no analogs or equivalents in the world on that. So let's communicate later on after the session. Let's give the microphone to our colleague here, and let's tell them what they measure, how, and why. Good afternoon. So that's not what I asked the microphone for, but if we talk about measurement in general with the help of gadgets, so let's go back to 2000 when polysomnography appeared, and you could laugh a lot at the doctors, yes, when those are suffering from snoring, but we understand that this is obstructive apnea, sleeping apnea, and that is something that leads to some other effects as well. We start if we treat it to snore, but we get obese, and many other clinical effects can attain. So as a result, it led to another group of gadgets that as of today is very compacted. They can measure saturation of your blood, and also they can measure the temperature of your body. But this set of data can allow you to get quite an interesting clinical picture. I have the following question. There is a number of you. The first one is for Sergey. Sergey, could you please say you are creating a very perfect system, but while analyzing data received with the help of computed tomography, yes, CT, if I got you correctly, is there a parallel analysis of this data with the data of clinical picture or history of the patient, and do you anyhow compare it with the biochemistry and also oncomarkers, the data that we receive with the help of other check-up measures? Because even X-ray specialists know the first and foremost rule that while analyzing any study, you have to have some picture to compare with a clinical image. Yes, I understand. We are not just working with CT, we also work with X-ray and tomograph. As for comparison, yes, at this stage when we compare the two, we take some data sets where pathology is confirmed. If we talk about oncology, then we also take histological information. And after that, when the process of implementation starts, then we take this model and we use this but we need to understand that we should somehow compile with other materials as well, like elaboration. But anyway, we compare it with the existing clinical history. But anyway, it is done by the doctor. As for the marking, yes, it is no automated processes for that, for the marking. It is done with the help of doctors. And what about clinical admission? Who's going to do that? Well, you see, right now we are in the process of getting a registration certificate from Rospotrebnadzor and both in Russia and Europe. But something that we do, at least in the format that we are applying, it's not something of medical usage. And from the legal point of view, it could be referred to as the quality control. So it means that after the doctor, when doctor analyzes something, we revise it again. It's another revision. We look at it, and our doctors then analyze for again our results. So it's like a quality control. And when we get registration, and when it will be classified as something of medical usage, then that will probably be another application. And one more question, if you don't mind. Andrei, could you please go back to the discussion about a number of gadgets? I mean, multiple. I am a doctor by educational background, so I collect data from my own. So I wanted to collect this information about my body temperature, etc. And those who appeal to me, I also apply pretty much the same strategy. But when I decided to organize some clinical work, I will be only work based on for example, mercury-based tonometer, and I mean, this kind of gadgets, official ones. But it's not about whether it's accurate or not accurate. The point is that they have been tested, and they are on the clinical recommendations list. Hence the questions, when we have this kind of work, you are a guru on that. Could you please say, do you also organize any kind of work with authorities responsible not just for permissions, but also those who could transform it into some clinical recommendations or permissions? Yes, of course. Exactly. We have a group for norms. For example, Rospotrebnadzor have just announced that there is a working group, and we need to simplify registration of the software and medicine. This is the fruit of our work as an association over the past year. A year ago, Rospotrebnadzor said that everything is fine and there is no need to correct anything. So they confirmed it, and then together with the Skolkovo Center of Competence, we decided to organize some joint work and up to Rospotrebnadzor. So if you have already tried that, that's very complicated. As for recommendations, we're ready to do pretty much the same thing, but no work is being conducted. But we are part of a certain committees for standardization, and we're trying to do that. As for ClinRex, we are missing the doctors. It needs to be initiated from other doctors, but not for innovators or investors. That's the point. But anyway, it needs to be done, because otherwise we won't be able to do that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Andrei. That was from Andrei Levitsky, represent here the Center of Medical Products from Sberbank. And now the floor is given to Mikhail Yugaev, International Muscle Cluster. Thank you very much. I have a question. Alina, the first question with you. Today, Ilya said it was that 75% of human body can be substituted. I'm trying to think it over. Is it about a particular drug or about the whole body in general? This different. No, it's just about locomotorium. It's also about fake, artificial body parts that can be implanted in case of some disease or loss of a body part. Very new figure, and it's really nice that, some years down the road, we will be transformed in cybers, and we will be living all together in this world, and will become them. and won't even have to make any diagnosis, but still we have to diagnose. Again, can I have a question? The day before yesterday, we sat together and said that in South Korea, there are some obstacles to the implementation of artificial intelligence because doctors do not really trust it, and at the same time regard them as competitors and impose some limitations there. What about Russia? That's a very complicated issue, in fact. The fact that they don't trust them and no confidence in them, at the same time, the results are really efficient. So every pilot project that we are performing in the regions in order to communicate and to organize everything better, we did it via the Ministry of Health and some social projects, and they were interested in showing some, for example, diagnosis at the early stages. So every pilot project was finalized with the help of a protocol where it was stated that several, 200 CT were revised. For the first time ever, a certain number of cases was revealed, especially for the malignant tumors. At the same time, we also showed to the doctors, show them international statistics, and it was really difficult. And we want to say that it's not about just find faults with you and find your mistakes. For example, 70% mistakes, so that they let them pass. It's not because the doctors are bad, but because objectively it's very difficult to cope with such a big volume of work. We're not here to find your faults and mistakes. It's very difficult, but that's how we are moving forward. So thank you very much. One more question. Good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Alexei, Central Direction of Healthcare, Russian Railways. I would like to say that I would like to, I love the question from Andrea Mas. What about your measurements other than pulse? What else do you measure? We have train operators. We care about their health and monitor it, out of the train, but not when they are. And while they're driving, we also need to keep a very close eye on that so that they can stay awake and to be in the good shape, etc., to prevent themselves sleeping. We should say that not all the visits are done with opposite. And now, answering your question, in one of the pilot projects, we are already measuring, for example, skin resistance that allows us to clearly identify whether operator is tired or not. And I also want to tell to the doctors that as of today, this question has not been solved in a full-fledged manner. And thus, for example, at our company, we are thinking about any ways to wear any kind of gadgets that could assist them, not just for simple patients, ordinary. We have 3 million people registered at our establishment, but we also want to distribute gadgets in Russia and also for our employees, for example, operators. So we want to give them gadgets that could allow us to solve our medical questions and also monitor their health state. Similar situations is with the artificial intelligence. I know that in a Yandex company they are searching for similar projects, but unfortunately today we haven't heard any ready-made solutions. Thank you very much. I think that it was just a comment rather than a question, but I just can say that I've heard about your R&D works. At least 3 teams in Russia are trying to do that, to measure using different methods, to take that kind of things to prevent the driver from sleeping. And also at Russian Railways, you use special railways, as far as all from our colleagues, and would nice to have a chat afterwards. So, colleagues, we are running out of time for the discussion about but it doesn't mean that the discussion is over. We are still here, and on the margins of the forum we'll continue our discussion. Well, apparently this subject cannot be discussed separately from the other things, whether we talk about inbuilt and implantable devices or non-implantable, I mean medical devices. These are all just a part of our common mainstream flow happening within the digital development space. I mean big data, artificial intelligence, gene-based technologies, so everything that we have been very much focused on. So and here we should not ignore the situations, because in this case you can also be converted into gadgets. We all, at the same time, shouldn't get obsessed with all those gadgets and put too many efforts into this cyber nation and this industry. You shouldn't do it either, because with this case, I mean, with a foil cap, you can be caught by sanitary experts. So I wish you stay in good shape and wealth. Hope gadgets will assist you. Thank you very much.